Welcome to the Next Gen CMO podcast, where we sit down with seasoned CMOs and emerging talents in sales and marketing to explore the wins and occasional losses that shape today's leaders and the strategic maneuvers that can help propel you to the forefront of B2B marketing.
All right, everyone. Welcome to our next episode of the Next Gen CMO podcast. Today, I am thrilled to welcome our friend Ross Simmonds. Ross, if you are not familiar, is an entrepreneur, marketing strategist. He helps B2B SaaS companies use content marketing, SEO, distribution, technology, all the things to unlock all new levels of organic growth. And as we all know, budgets are tight and mind share is limited. And so we have to maximize every single channel we can. So we're excited about his background. He's currently the founder and CEO of Foundation Marketing, which is a B2B content marketing agency. They take data, they take creativity, and they support successful and ambitious software brands in the world. And we're thrilled to have him here. So welcome, Ross.
Deli, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here and excited to share some value with your audience today. Awesome.
Well, cool. Yeah, I think that every audience is trying to figure out, how do I get more out of my content? So I think this is a great talk we're gonna have around content distribution and maximizing impact. So I'm glad you're here. Tell us, as we start, tell us a little bit about your story. How did you end up in this space? How did you end up as a founder and develop all of your expertise around this?
Definitely. So I always wanted to be in marketing. When I was a young pup, I came across a movie called Boomerang, which had a marketer in it. And I was like, oh, that's a cool job. So I was like, let's go down that path. I took a degree in marketing.
Wait, is this like Boomerang? Like, is this Eddie Murphy?
Yes, 100%. Right. Yeah, definitely not rated G, but it was a great movie. But that one inspired me to get into advertising. And I started in the traditional advertising world. So I was involved with bringing brands like Kit Kat to the East Coast of Canada, which is where I'm based. Ran a bunch of campaigns with hockey players and stuff like that. And that was a whole bunch of fun. But I fell in love with the linear nature and the ability to see the cash register ring with B2B. I had a couple clients who I was working on the side while I was working in the agency world. They had heard of me from my website. I had a website called rosssimmons.com, which is still in operations today.
Say that slower, Ross what? Oh,
rosssimmons.com. So first name, last name.com. I started that when I was in university after scaling up a fantasy football blog. And then my mom saying, hey, this fantasy football blog's taking off, but your marks are dropping. So why don't you write about what you're doing in school? So I shifted my fantasy football blog to write about my degree. Yeah, exactly. So I started to write about marketing, and then bigger brands started to reach out asking, hey, you're writing this piece on how to do marketing to millennials. And at the time, millennials were the young, hip, and cool folks. So I got a lot of brands interested in that. I was working at an agency full time. I had a handful of B2B brands write me after writing about how Facebook could be used, how LinkedIn could be used for B2B brands. And then I started to close these deals in addition to doing work in the day-to-day agency. I left the agency, went all in, started to work with some startups. A lot of those startups grew and scaled and had some major acquisitions. I was kind of like their first hire in those roles. Then I spun out and said, okay, I'm going to do this full time as an agency. Started up Foundation. At the time, it was still just like Ross Simmonds Consulting, but eventually we got more and more leads. We kind of just drank our own Kool-Aid as it relates to creating content that resonates with the audience. And you fast forward and we've had the opportunity to work with some of the biggest and most ambitious brands in the world, helping them scale their content initiatives and drive results on the back of it. So it's been a wild journey. It's been a fun one. I'm super passionate about distribution. That's one area that I think a lot of brands have slept on for way too long. And I'm super excited to chat about that a little bit more today as well.
Awesome. Very cool. So just as we think about that, so one, is there a jewelry company called Ross Simmonds?
There is one just called Ross. Yeah, there is 100%. Yeah. Oftentimes I've been in the States and I've seen their signs and I take a quick photo with them and all that good stuff. But yes, there is.
Sorry.
No relation though. That would be nice generational wealth if it was, but not exactly.
Second, so when you content marketing, I love it when you say you have a B2B content marketing agency. How different is that than an end-to-end marketing agency, given that content touches everything that we do? What are the guardrails on a content marketing agency as compared to say a whole B2B shop?
Yeah, so the one big piece that's different about Foundation versus most is we don't get into the weeds of trying to do everything. We're not going to build you a website. We're not going to go into the weeds of saying, hey, let us support you. We would identify like the site structure as it relates to the content, but we're not going to be the developers that are building the site. We wouldn't be the team that you would come to if you wanted to run a Super Bowl ad. So like, we're not running the big, fancy, creative Super Bowl campaigns and initiatives, that type of traditional style advertising. We're creating the content that could be top of funnel, where people are typing in certain things into Google and you want to attract them. We're creating bottom of funnel content, so like case studies and testimonials. We might even work with your team to have them support middle of funnel with like demo products and webinars and things like that. But we're really focused on the art of create content that is intended to drive results and drive revenue and pipeline and those results that kind of matter to a B2B customer.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you for clarifying. I think all of us are like constantly fielding different agencies, certainly people in my role. And so it's always good to know what's the delineation between the different parts. Okay. So if you think about this in the world of content and the distribution channels, I think one of the big challenges that all of us have as marketers and marketing leaders is we create so much content, a ton of it. And we spend a lot of time with that. And it's good content. A lot of it, some of it's not, but most of it's pretty good content. But I think we spend more time on that than we do on actually distributing it or prioritizing distributing or creating alternatives of it or, cutting and shaping it in different forms. How do you think about that? Like where are you seeing that pain point and how do we shift our focus there?
Yeah, over the last few decades, really, content gurus got us into this trap, and myself included. Like if I go back to 2000 and let's say 16, 17, I was on stage at events telling people create more content, write more content, create more ebooks, write more blog posts, create more white papers. You do this and the world will be yours. And the industry listened. The industry like caught up to that. They were like, yeah, Bill Gates said content is king. It must be king. Let's keep creating content. And everybody did it. Everyone started to produce a ton of content. We brought in creative directors. We brought in all of the roles to like make our content excellent and thrive, but everyone did it. So it got super noisy. So it got super like cloudy. You go onto a channel and it's like trying to drink out of a fire hydrant every single day. You open up your inbox and it feels the exact same way. So marketers have flooded the internet with tons of content, and it got way easier when devices got more accessible. So now we can take photos and we can create on the go. It also got easier with this thing called AI, because now you can produce a blog post that might be mediocre and not actually that good, but you can do it in a matter of seconds. So now there's just a ridiculous amount of noise. And brands have fallen into the trap of thinking that if they create content, they're doing the job of content marketing. When in reality, they've forgotten the fact that content marketing is 2 words. It's not just create content. You have to market the content that you create. So what we've been embracing and what we've been preaching to folks is create ridiculously valuable content, but don't let it die the day in which it goes live. You have to be thinking about how you can repurpose, reshare, and re-promote these pieces in unique and interesting ways. So if you believe that you are doing the job by just producing and producing and producing, you're actually just contributing to the noise. There's probably a piece of content that most content teams, most engines have produced last quarter or even 2 quarters ago that drove the most leads in that quarter that they forgot about, that they never did anything with before. And there's probably a piece of content that they created 2 years ago that blew up, took over, resonated with everyone, but they never did anything with it again. And that's oftentimes where we come in. We do an audit to understand like what stories did you create in the past that drove results, and why aren't we still talking about them? Why aren't we repurposing them? Why aren't we using the pieces that drove pipeline in the past to drive pipeline today? People think that marketing always has to be about net new, but what we really should be doing is thinking about, okay, let's go back to fundamentals with humans. Fundamentally, we all resonate with every version of Lion King every single time it comes out. We always do. Why can Disney keep launching The Lion King? Because people just resonate with the same stories. Why does that happen? Because humans stay the same. We emotionally connect with ideas that solve our problems, that connect with us on an emotional level, that solve problems for us, that are educational, engaging, entertaining, or empowering. And for some reason, marketers fall into this trap of always trying to chase the new thing when they're likely sitting on gold. So what we oftentimes do is we come in and we help them take that gold and bring it back to the forefront of their content engines for the year and then run that cycle over and over again.
That's all. I just wrote that down. I'm like, I'm going to do a content audit with my team and find out what the top 5 highest performing assets over the last 3 years have been, and what can we do to
see when the last time that you shared them. It's so fascinating, right? Like sometimes we'll see a webinar that someone wrote, and the mistake is they're like, how do we do that again? You do it again by just doing the same thing.
You just said it. Like, they won. Yeah.
You share that again, but instead it's like, okay, we have to come up with an idea that was just as good as that idea we did 2 years ago. No
one remembers what they saw 2 years ago.
No one does. And guess what? The people who are online today aren't the same as the people who were online 2 years ago. The people who are in their role today with a buying power aren't the same person that they were 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And because of that shift, we should be able to recycle, reuse, and repurpose the content that we developed in the past. But a lot of brands forget it and they sleep on it.
Well, and you talked about kind of focusing on really, really great content. We'll talk about the AI impact on that in just a sec. But on the actual really great, when I was at Gartner, I was the CMO of our digital markets division, which was the SMB division. So much more transactional, the rest of Gartner, which was sort of enterprise focused. Yeah. On the SMB side, Gartner is a content engine, right? Their research arm is massive. So they do all this research, they create all this content. So when we launched the digital markets division, we brought over like 30 content creators, which were researchers.
Yeah.
And they would spend 3 weeks on a 3,000 word, paper, research
journal, which is paper. Yeah,
which is awesome maybe for an enterprise audience, awesome for a lot of things. But it would get here and they would spend all this time and they would publish it and then they go to the next one. And so as soon as I took over content, I was like, wait, there's so much gold in so much. I could drive so much out of that. So then we added a content marketing team.
Oh, I love that.
That then say like, okay, we're going to take this content and actually figure out all the marketing things we can do. It's all the cuts and slices dice. Can we make a video out of that? Can we make a highlight reel out of that? Can we make a LinkedIn slideshow out of that? What is it that we can do with this thing?
Love it.
And it was such a game changer because then one, I think the people who are writing that original and pouring their heart into this really great piece of content are seeing it last more than 15 minutes. Like they're seeing the life of it stretch further. And I think there's such an impact there. So I love that that's where you're focused.
That's a great philosophy. Like, I feel like if we step out of our wonderful world of B2B marketing for a second, and we think of our content like a movie or a film, imagine that a film would be launched with no promotion about it. Like, if we considered our content, that white paper, the 3,000 words that somebody put their heart and soul into, they were researching experts, they did a data analysis, they did all of those things. Imagine that as being your film. And imagine that film just showing up in the theaters and you not talking about it, you know, having the people inside of it talk about it or promote it or amplify it, having no like initial press coverage or any of those things. It would never happen. So for us as marketers, we need to really shift the way that we think about content to be exactly what you just described, Kelly. Like, that playbook is so innovative to say, we're going to create a content marketing function within our production team to say, you're our distribution engine. You're going to turn this into a carousel. You're going to read these 3,000 words and maybe find 4 different blog posts that come out of it that can be amplified and then have this as a CTA below it. Or you're going to find 3 graphs that can be shared on Instagram. And one of them is so good that we're going to turn it into a vertical video and share that on TikTok. Like, that mentality and that approach to be doing it back then and applying it now is gold. That's what more people need to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I guess the other option is what Wicked did, which just took a 2.5-hour show and turned it into a 6-hour movie. And as you've seen part 1, this so long. I was like, how do we take a 2.5-hour Broadway show and make it 2 3-hour movies? Like, this can't be right.
It is wild.
It was great. Singing is amazing, but boy, it's long. So there's a way to go shorter.
Generation Titanic, 100%.
That's right. So let's flip back. So I alluded to the AI side. So you mentioned focus on really great content, but you also mentioned the value of AI being able to create quick content. You know, quality, I think, ranges on its originality and that kind of thing. But how do you think AI is impacting, I think, both positively and negatively, this content marketing engine? How is it reshaping the way that not only do we create originals, create derivatives, but also distribute our content?
Yeah, I think it's a blessing in disguise. And I think at the end of the day, there's an element of fundamentals that are required to get the most out of AI. So if you are a bad marketer and you're using AI, you're going to do bad marketing. If you're a good marketer and you use AI, you're going to do good marketing faster. If you're a great marketer and you use AI, you're going to do great marketing faster. That's kind of my fundamental belief across the board. So It starts with having some baseline understanding of your audience, your customers, et cetera. And then I think AI can be a powerful tool. I think if you give AI to someone who already has the deep knowledge of an audience, of a piece of content, they can work magic with that piece of content. They can turn that into a bunch of different things in the matter of seconds that would have taken probably multi-hours in the past. It can be done in an hour or 30 minutes sometimes. And I think that that's a very powerful use case that more and more brands need to be open to. The challenge that I think a lot of people run into and organizations run into is that there's fear. There's fear that AI is taking jobs. There's fear that AI is going to make me obsolete, that I no longer need to kind of apply that human creativity to it. When in reality, AI still hallucinates. AI still makes mistakes. AI still has challenges and gaps that have not been kind of closed yet. So until we've reached that final mile, the human touch is still necessary. I think human touch is necessary to review. If you are a brand that is so ambitious and so confident in AI that you just plug and play, then power to you. I'm not there yet. Like, I would not just be like, let AI just run this thing on autopilot. We don't need a human editor to review it or anything. I believe I have a high risk tolerance, but that's not a level of risk that I'm willing to touch. So I think marketers need to acknowledge and embrace that. Use AI as like an augmentation tool rather than this tool that we view as something that we either stay away from completely or a tool that we're afraid of. That's kind of my perspective on it. What do you think? What's your perspective today on the way it rolls into the mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things. One, I think we go immediately to Gen AI, and I don't know that it's all Gen AI. Where there's a lot of work in automation and agents and some of the things that I think are a great opportunity. But I think in the world of Gen AI, where I try to use, or where I think of tapping into the AI beast is sometimes in outlines, like help me think about how to structure this piece. I'm still going to write my own words, but what's the general layout of that piece? Second one, I think I do sometimes like on headline ideation. Like, here's my current working headline. Give me like 10 alternatives to this. And it kind of plays with different language.
Yeah.
I think that one's one. And sometimes for really, really bottom of funnel SEO content that's just meant for straight transaction, optimize this for search, get the like, why is it different? What are the 10 things I need to know? Like, whatever the key things that SEO would be looking for where it's not about thought leadership. It's really just about a kind of a research, piece on like facts and figures, and you want to pick up that search volume.
I love
those are the areas where I tend to go. And then like I said, on the automation of workloads, we just signed on with Jasper.
Cool.
AI.
We've used Jasper.
I guess it comes with like some prepackaged workloads or workflows where you can kind of like, extract from these fields in Salesforce the insights on win-loss data. Like, okay, well that's a great like productivity saving.
Right.
Where it's not about sort of original content, it's about getting insights so that we can go take some different marketing steps.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think finding those efficiencies is the key. And for a lot of the work that we do as marketers, like creating content or distributing content or optimizing content, I see AI as being a massive game changer for productivity. Like, I can remember opening up spreadsheets back in the day, and we would be doing like an SEO campaign, and I would literally click every tab, every URL that was in the SERP for a certain keyword. I would open them all up, and then I would go to every single individual page and write their title and put it in a sheet, and then write what I believe the new title should be. I can remember doing that. Now there's tools out there that you can essentially do that at scale for multiple URLs, multiple pages, and optimize it based off of keyword intent within the matter of seconds. You then combine that with the new video AI. And I think there's a very interesting opportunity. I ran a test a few weeks ago where I created a deepfake version of myself where I was talking into a camera and I had it kind of replicate my mannerisms. I used this tool called 11 Labs to like create a synthetic version of my voice. It doesn't really pick up the Canadian like boots and stuff like that, but it was close. Yeah, exactly.
In this conversation. But yes,
it doesn't get them. So I showed my mom this video and I was like, all right, Mom, I'm going to show you two videos. I recorded one real and one that was in AI. And I was like, Mom, which one's me and which one's AI? She didn't know. She didn't actually know. Her own kid. So I think we're going into one of the most transformational times for creators as well, because I believe there's a world where I could get an AI to read a YouTube script version of any blog post and have that automatically uploaded to a piece, embed it, and have that experience for people and they wouldn't know who it is. Is that something I would do immediately today? I think not without the human touch. I would not be comfortable without doing it like a human review.
You still need that QA on the back.
We still need the QA to make sure I'm not saying the wrong thing with the AI. But I think we're living in a fascinating time. And there's some cool tools out there that I think are giving people the ability to truly be augmented, to repurpose, repackage their content at scale, whether it's Jasper, distribution.ai, HeyGen, all of these tools. Like it's a wild time to be a marketer. Yeah. It's a great time too. I love it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much creative stuff. Like right now, I feel like I'm in education mode. I just like learning about all these tools and what can they do and what's good and which ones work and which ones can we implement and what can we do at scale? So I think
that's the mindset that everyone should have. Like right now, even if you don't know exactly which tool to use, educate yourself, and empower your teams. Like if you're in the CMO seat, your mandate going into 2025 should be, let me think about how I can empower and educate my people to get more out of the tools that we're using, to get more out of themselves so they can have a better life, so they can be more efficient, so they can do the work that actually needs their best version of themselves. And when you do that, it's going to make everybody win. Everybody's going to be more successful. So invest in the education, invest in the empowering of your teams to use these tools, and the ROI will pay dividends for years to come.
See, and I think that's great. I get this question all the time. In fact, I just answered it yesterday in an interview. Someone was asking me about, is AI taking jobs away? And I was like, and my answer was exactly where you're at. I was like, I don't think so. It's about finding efficiencies so you can actually maximize like the strategic value of your job and not the transactional, like repetitive, like non-differentiated values. Exactly. Automate the repetitive stuff and then bring out, like you said, the best version of yourself. Like focus on the parts where you can add real strategic.
And then the pie just gets bigger. The pie gets bigger, which is great. It's like, okay, if you can do more with the same amount of time, then that's a win-win for everyone. So like the values all go up, everything increases, we have more pipeline, we have more revenue, we have more opportunities, more growth opportunities for you and your career. This is a win-win. As long as we embrace it, as long as we all embrace it. Like I think that's the hesitation and the fear. And like even as a leader, you have to be okay with not knowing everything. Like that's the other part of it. Like we have to recognize as leaders, you can't stay on top of all these tools. Like this thing is moving faster than anything that I've seen in my career. You have to be okay with empowering your team to say, all right, you get this. You're in the weeds on, let's say, pipeline generation. You're in the lead as it relates to SEO. Use the AI SEO tools. You're in social media. Use the SEO AI tools. Like give the teams the luxury to be empowered and educated in their lanes and then let them be great.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Since you just brought up SEO AI, what should marketers be thinking about with regards to the Google SERP? Like right now on page one, Google is sort of taking over the majority of, your pre-scroll feed with their own SERP. Obviously, it's finding content from all different. Some of them source, some of them don't. And so I'm just curious, like as we're thinking about content creation, we recognize that the ability to get to page one is harder. Yeah. Even number one on page one is way down here. Right. It's true. So how do we think about that? How do we plan for that? How do we measure maybe content impact in general, but also content impact through SEO in this new AI powered SERP takeover world?
Yeah. So there's two key elements. One, you always have to be making sure that you have the data to reflect your decisions. So you have to be tracking the SERP. And there's a wide range of different tools that would do that. One tool that we love is called Stat. It's like an enterprise tool for Moz that like allows you to track your share of voice in the SERP against different keywords. So I would start by ensuring that you're monitoring and tracking how you are doing in the SERP against different keywords, and just make sure that you have that cadence so you can monitor and track, especially high priority keywords that drive a lot of ROI for your business. Once you have that baseline, you have to be thinking two things. One, how do you continue to optimize for search? Because I do believe the death of Google and the death of SEO is highly overblown, and it's not actually going to happen for the next 15 years. I think Google is still going to be a dominant force in buying behavior for a very long time. Yep. But if you kind of are seeing the writing on the wall around like AI overviews and all of the shifts with people using ChatGPT to do search or Claude or Perplexity, all of these things, then there's this concept that is called generative engine optimization. which is the idea of optimizing your content so it's more likely to be stolen by the LLMs, ingested by them, and then used to inform the responses that it gives people. So if you go through the process of GEO, generative engine optimization, you're trying to do things like increase the authority of the content that you've created, meaning you're referencing edu links, you're referencing journals, research-backed studies, like high quality assets that are out there in the web. You're using industry lingo and terminology to ensure that there's an authoritative tone associated with it. You are making sure that it's meeting all of these different pieces of criteria. And then you're distributing that content on the channels that AI overviews, aka Google, OpenAI, ChatGPT, have licensing agreements with to ensure that that content is showing up where you want it. What does that mean? Well, Google and ChatGPT are currently in cahoots, as an example, with a brand called Reddit. So what brands should be doing is right away now some people are like, wait, Reddit? I'm not going on Reddit. Just hear me out for a second. So OpenAI and Google are in like major partnership deals with Reddit. And if you can syndicate and distribute your content into that community, that content is being scraped by the LLMs to inform the responses to all of those AI overviews. So my recommendation is twofold. One, make sure that you have authoritative, expertise-driven, driven content, and then that you're distributing it in the content channels that these AI tools have a partnership with for licensing agreements, just to make sure that when someone does ask the question, that your content is more likely to show up. So that would be the playbook that we would currently be recommending to folks, and recognize that the game is still long. Like, I think there's a lot of fear and a lot of gurus that they're preaching the demise of Google, which I think is nonsense right now. Like, is the SERP more noisy than ever? 100%. Is Google still getting millions of people every second typing in words to Google things? Yes. So let's not sleep on the reality of the fact that it's still a giant. So that's kind of our MO on it.
Awesome. I love that. And I love getting to host these podcasts. It's like a free hour of consulting for me, for you to teach me about all the things I need to know about content marketing. I'm actually taking notes to share with my content marketing leader. Awesome. Well, cool. Okay, let's flip gears here a little bit. So you wrote a book.
Yes.
Create Once, Distribute Forever. I haven't even read the book yet, and I will tell you that I want to read it because the title alone tells me exactly what it's about, and I love that. So it talks about a lot of the things that we've talked about, creating, distributing. Tell us a little bit about what drove the need for that book, or what you're seeing as a reaction from that book, and maybe an example, if applicable, of where you created that book once and have distributed it forever.
For sure.
Since then in different forms.
Definitely. So I'll take you back into the olden days when I first got started with my fantasy football blog, because that was what inspired the first eye-opening moment for me, where I realized distribution is more important than content. I was creating a lot of content for this fantasy football blog, and I thought it was pretty good. I would share it on my Facebook page, but I would only get 2 likes, one from my mom and one from my buddy Matt. And I was like, oh, this is brutal. This sucks. No one cares about my fantasy football stuff. I'm sharing this with the world. Then I took one post and I shared it with this community of fantasy football folks on this site called Sporting News, and it took off. I was in my parents' basement in Nova Scotia, I think I was 22 at the time. And some of the biggest publications in the world in fantasy sports at the time started to reshare my content and started to talk about my content and started to talk about this guy who was creating content on this topic. And I was like, oh, this is wild. This is interesting to me.
Yeah.
I guess I need to actually focus on the distribution side instead of just the creation. So you fast forward through my career, and I've seen this time and time again. We've worked with brands where we have gone in and they've had tons of great content. But the moment that we distributed that content into channels where their community was spending time, they would see the highest amount of traffic that they ever had on these pieces. And we're like, exactly, you have to distribute your content. And so my belief, and the reason why I wanted to write this book, is because I've noticed over the last few years, a lot of brands have fallen into the trap that we've talked about. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of businesses, a lot of CMOs even have fall into the trap of getting and creating production-driven teams with production-driven goals, instead of thinking about the fact that the life cycle of an asset starts the day in which you press publish. So for me, the creation of the book was really to solidify and articulate to teams and leaders, when you press publish, that is not the end of the job. That is the beginning. There's no world in which you should be comfortable pressing publish and not doing something with those pieces, because every single piece of content you create is an investment And those investments should pay dividends. And the best way to get dividends is to give it more reach. So in the book, I wanted to make two elements. And in the first part, it's very theory focused, strategic focus, and gives the blueprint on how to do it and why to do it. In the second half, it is very much a worksheet style element of the book where people can go to different sections, identify, oh, I'm interested in distribution on LinkedIn. And then there's a playbook on all of the different ways you can distribute on LinkedIn. There's a section on Reddit. There's a section on Quora. There's a section on email. There's a section on Facebook, on groups, on pages, all of those things. So we created one section of the book that is exclusively focused on being like that roadmap so the practitioner can use it. To give you an example of distribution in action and how I've kind of leveraged the book to do it. When I launched the book, I wrote a blog post, and the blog post was about content distribution, of course, right? So instead of just pressing publish on that blog post and calling it quits, I looked at that blog post and I was like, there's really 5 sections of this. I have one section where I'm talking about Facebook distribution. So let's create a YouTube video about how to do distribution on Facebook. There's a section where I'm talking about Facebook groups. Okay, let's create a podcast that is essentially that part of the blog post, but it's a section on that topic. So I created a podcast episode on that topic. And then from there, I was able to craft a bunch of emails that would promote different sections of that one blog post, but essentially rewritten in a different way, all linking back to the post. I had different podcast interviews that I was doing on different topics like Reddit and Quora and Facebook and LinkedIn. And again, it was all rooted in that individual blog post. We had Instagram posts, we had carousels with different sections of it. I launched a checklist that was essentially a condensed version of the book as like 100 ways to distribute your content. And we just continue to amplify that on Reddit, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on all of the different channels to really give the book more reach. And even today, the book may have launched like months ago, but I'll still promote the book through my posts on X, on LinkedIn, through my bio, through my banner on my website, through random stories on Instagram, at a conference on the stage, all with the intention of getting this piece of content out there amidst the masses. And I think that philosophy is something that by applying it to the book was what allowed it to kind of be the #1 book bestseller in Amazon when we had the launch. And it was because of that intentional effort to distribute the book.
That's awesome. I didn't know where the answer to that question was going to go. I'm so glad it went there because really like your launch of that book about distribution exemplified how to do distribution, which I think is really, really powerful. We run demand base on demand base here, which gives you a really authentic way to say like, hey, these are all the ways we're using demand base customers so that you can see it ends up being in playbooks. Like your launch of this book is a playbook. I mean, you could write a case study now of how you distributed your distribution book, 100%. Which I think is super powerful. As well. So that's very cool. And by the way, I love that you do fantasy football. Just for clarity, is it Canadian football?
No. I'm a doctor.
Is it NFL?
No, always NFL. I don't think I've seen a Canadian football. No shade to my Canadian fans and friends, but go Eagles, fly Eagles, fly. I've been a diehard Eagles fan for many, many years. Yeah. Yeah. Don't hold it.
I lost like 0.46 points last night in fantasy, my head-to-head. So I was pretty bummed by that because I was like at 80% chance of winning like at the end of the day Sunday. I had one game. I had one player going. I think it was just my defense. I just had my defense. Right. They had a tight end going. I'm like, how much from the tight end? Like, yet I was up by 10. I ended up losing by 0.46 points, which is infuriating.
That is infuriating. I know which tight end did that to you. I apologize. Yeah.
You're like, I still write my fantasy blah, blah. That's funny. Well, this is super helpful. I love this. And I will most likely call you after this conversation is over and say, hey, we need some help. I'm here because we have a really, really talented content marketing team. Cool. But just thinking differently, I think, about how do we maximize the impact. It's not about quality of content. It's about extending the reach and the distribution. So,
well, that's the thing. It's like so many people create great content, but you have to really take the time to distribute, repurpose, and reshare to get the most out of that great asset that you've created.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this was cool. Thank you so much for chatting. One more question, and then I will let you go. Yeah. Besides fantasy football, besides deep fakes of you on the internet that your mom approves of, what's a fun fact about you that people don't know?
I played competitive dodgeball for quite some time until I had a career-ending injury. But I am back, and I feel like I could run circles around even still some of these young bucks who are picking up the game. But dodgeball was, you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
We should have started here.
We should have.
Yeah.
Me and my Zip both played. She was better than me, but yeah.
So there's real like competitive dodgeball leagues. Is it like
there's like nationals. You go, well, I don't think it's professional in the sense that you get paid for it yet. Like, I don't think anyone is willing to pay to watch people play dodgeball. But it's a very highly competitive sport if you really do want to take it seriously. I would say I don't want to be ageist, and I'm old now, but like, I do feel like it's a younger person's game. Like, my knees don't work like they used to. I used to say like, all right, I'm going to dodge this, but my body doesn't move as fast as it used to. Things aren't moving like they used to, but it's a great game. I enjoy it.
Yeah. It sounds like starting to move the pickleball, but it's exciting that you ran that. That's amazing. I'm impressed. We're a big sports family. I have very athletic children, and so we spend our time. We have the state quarterfinal football game this Friday night for my high school junior.
Yeah, cool.
So,
are you playing pickleball? Or are you a pickleballer?
I'm not good at it very much, but I love to play it. I grew up playing tennis, and so it was a nice kind of pivot. My parents are diehards. They built a pickleball court in their backyard.
That's awesome.
Because they were so passionate about it. So they play at a time. We play when we're at their house.
That's awesome.
And it's growing. It's become such a social thing that anybody we kind of grab a paddle and jump in for a work event or anything. So it's a lot of fun.
I love it. My littles are playing tennis, and me and the wife have just picked up our paddles. So we're going to start playing pickleball while they're becoming pros at tennis. So
there you go.
One day I'll be in your neck of the woods, and we'll have a nice friendly game.
Yes. Yeah. Let me know when you're in Austin. That would be great.
I like it.
Well, awesome. Well, if people want to follow you or find out more or see all your content in action, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, foundationinc.co is where you can go to learn more about Foundation and what we do. If you're interested in connecting with me personally, rosssimmons.com, but I'm on all your favorite networks. You can do a quick search for me, and I'm sure you'll find me there.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, Ross Simmonds, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our listeners for listening. This super, super helpful content, no pun intended, about content. And we'll see you all on the next episode of the Next Gen CMO podcast. Thanks, everyone.